Alright, this is the Tao of Jeet series, part 16. I'm on page number 15. Stylists, instead of looking directly into the fact, cling to forms, theories, and go on entangling themselves further and further, finally putting themselves into an inextricable snare. They do not see it in its suchness because their indoctrination is crooked and twisted. Discipline must conform to the nature of things in their suchness. Maturity does not mean to become a captive of conceptualization. It is the realization of what lies in our innermost selves. When there is freedom from mechanical conditioning, there is simplicity. Life is a relationship to the whole. Simplicity, survival. It's like modern times, the simple pull of a trigger, very simple, not complex, but just pulling the trigger. Something simple, you got a knife, you got a sword, you stab the person that's trying to attack you. It's pretty simple. The more simple it is, the more efficient for combat, for survival. The man who is clear and simple does not choose. What is. Action based on an idea is obviously the action of choice, and such action is not liberating. On the contrary, it creates further resistance, further conflict. Assume pliable awareness. Relationship is understanding. It is the process of self-revelation. Relationship is the mirror in which you discover yourself. To be is to be related. Set patterns incapable of adaptability, of pliability, only offer a better cage. Truth is outside of all patterns. Okay, so I understand what he's trying to say. You know, truth is changing. It's not permanent. But in order to teach, especially for a school to franchise, or just any business to franchise, there has to be something that's stable. So there has to be a pattern that's implemented in order for the franchise to occur. So, you know, for example, you got a Subway, you got a McDonald's, there's a set pattern of a menu that they select, and then it has to be the same menu for all franchises across the nation. There has to be that consistency. That's how businesses franchise. So even these teachings, even this book is set. I mean, he passed away. He didn't say to have this published, but regardless of that, he passed away, and some people came together and put together his ideas and set it permanent. So then this could be redistributed over 664,000 times. It has to be the same, copied, to be redistributed. And that set pattern, there's limitations to that. That's not truth, because it's not changing anymore, because it's become permanent. Any business owner will be caught in that dilemma of being forced to organize and put certain patterns in place in order to expand and grow. Now, back to the examples of the Subway and McDonald's. If they wanted to change something in their menu, they can do it, but it's going to have to be implemented in all thousands of their stores. If they got 12,000 restaurants, they'll have to implement that change in all 12,000 restaurants, which is not an easy thing to do. So then it's better a lot of times for them to make very minimal changes, because one change could affect their entire business plan and financial security. Just for example, you'd have these Target stores, and there was some debate about transgender restrooms, and they decided to build a transgender restroom in Target, in all Targets, and that's going to cost them millions of dollars just to have that simple change. So when you're talking about a business, and you're talking about a business that has franchised out, there has to be some consistency, some patterns that are permanent in order for it to be implemented across all the stores. Now, if you just have one store, just one business, it's easy to make changes and have them implemented immediately. But if you only have one store, one school, your growth is very limited. Just like if you only have one book, then you can make a change in that book immediately, and then it doesn't affect any of the other books. But once you start distributing this book and you have over 500,000 copies, just to make one change in that book, now you got to make the same change for all 500,000 other copies, and that's going to serve to be a problem. So you see, in a lot of businesses, patterns are necessary. And it's the same thing with the curriculum in a martial arts school. There's a certain curriculum that a teacher or a sifu is going to teach his students, and that curriculum pretty much has to be set. It has to be permanent in order for it to be efficient. Because if you're teaching hundreds of students and you're teaching each student something different, and there's no consistency, then the business will suffer. Once there's some consistency, then certain duties, certain responsibilities, you could have assistant instructors who will help teach according to the curriculum to help more people advance together as a whole. Forms are vain repetitions, which offer an orderly and beautiful escape from self-knowledge with an alive opponent. Now, I see the truth in what he's saying, but what I also see are, boxers who do shadow boxing, where they don't have a sparring partner and they don't got an opponent, but they use their imagination. Maybe they think about what happened in past fights, their past opponents, and then they would imagine that and then shadow box to that. Or they might watch a video of other boxers and then use that as an imagination to shadow box. To me, shadow boxing, even if it is spontaneous and not a set pattern, it's still a form. It's still an imagination. It might be an imagination that's not the same every single time, but nonetheless, it's like you're training by yourself. You don't have a partner, and you're using your imagination to enhance your training. Now, clearly, through my experiences, I know that shadow boxing can be a very effective method of training. Now, forms is just a different way of shadow boxing. It's just more of a set pattern, a set way that's the same every single time, as it becomes like a teaching curriculum. It provides some consistency for the students to work on certain techniques before they advance onto the other techniques. To me, the forms are like a choreographed dance. You got dancers that could dance by themselves spontaneously, and they might be great dancers, but there's a difference between one person dancing in an unchoreographed manner and then having 10, 20, 30, 50 people dancing all at the same time, in rhythm, on beat, same moves. There has to be consistency when it comes to bringing groups of people together and choreographing a dance. There has to be a pattern that's the same. That's kind of what forms are like. Forms are designed for schools that are trying to train multiple people to achieve a certain level of proficiency. When you talk about something like boxing, though, it's just one single individual boxer. He doesn't need to worry about training other boxers to get to his level. It's just all himself. It's like more of a selfish development. But a lot of times in martial arts school, it's not just one person. It doesn't revolve around just one person. It is a development of multiple individuals that are aiming towards advancing towards a high level in unison. And that's kind of what forms are designed for, So he's saying forms are vain repetitions which offer an orderly and beautiful escape from self-knowledge with an alive opponent. Another thing is not everybody will have the opportunity to train with an alive opponent. That's why we use punching bags. That's why we use wooden dummies. That's why we use our imagination. That's why people might train out there with the trees. Or they might have somebody hold focus mitts. It's like to have an alive person to train with is not always an option. People are busy. People are living their own lives. People don't want to train with you, so you have to train on your own. And you have to figure out something. And another thing is, just because the person is alive doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to serve to be a valuable training partner. You could have a 5-year-old that's alive, but he's not going to challenge you to help you progress onto the next level when he doesn't know anything about combat, nor does he have the physical capabilities of challenging you to a certain level. And it doesn't even have to be a 5-year-old. It could just be It could be an elderly person, it could be a handicapped person, it could be a person that's just completely uncoordinated, just knows absolutely nothing about martial arts. And then this partner, you have to attempt to train this partner to become a valuable, resource to train with in order to help you progress. But then it may require so many years of your time to train this person that it's just not worth your time. Not everybody has the opportunity to train with valuable training partners that are alive. Bruce Lee, for example, had the opportunity to train with a lot of experienced martial artists who have been training for many years and many decades in what they did. He was able to connect with somebody like Chuck Norris and Danny Insano and Taekwondo masters and Hapkido masters and Kendo masters, karate masters. He was able to connect with students and teachers and masters of all different arts and train with them, spar with them. But not everybody has that opportunity, so what they have to do is they need to utilize their imagination. They might have to watch videos, or they imagine ways of training so then they can take themselves to the next level. Not everybody, it's not easy to find an alive person to train with. And not only that, but having an alive person that's going to actually try to help you progress rather than put you in a hospital or hurt you or prevent your development is not easy to find either. A lot of times there's a lot of ego and competitiveness involved, where a person might be better off training on their own, practicing forms, than to train with another alive human being who's full of ego, anger, and pride. So the less and less martial artists that are out there, the harder and harder it will be to find an alive opponent to train with. So martial artists will need to be very creative with the ways that they train in order to help themselves progress to the next level. Forms are like a way of supplementing your training when you don't have a training partner. In a way, I'll bring this up, it might seem a little odd, but to me, it's like an alive sparring partner, an alive opponent is like real sex with a woman. Not everybody has that opportunity. So the people that don't have the opportunity have to figure out ways of expending this energy and using this energy when they don't have a partner. So they will utilize pornography, they'll utilize masturbation and pornography, or if they don't use pornography, it might just be their imagination, their pornographic images in their minds to help them get aroused in order to expend that energy. So it's pornography, imagination, masturbation. Those are ways of using this energy when you don't have a partner to share these experiences with. And that becomes more of a supplement for the meantime until you can connect with somebody on an intimate level in order to share those experiences. And it's the same thing with training with an alive sparring partner. Not everybody will have those opportunities. Very few people will actually. So then a lot of martial artists will have to practice forms as a way of supplementing their development in order until they connect with other individuals who could help take them to the next level. You guys quiet down. I said quiet down. Accumulation is self-enclosing resistance, and flowery techniques strengthen the resistance. Accumulation is self-enclosing resistance, and flowery techniques strengthen the resistance. So what I'm getting from that is when you accumulate thousands of techniques, then your you may be getting further and further away from the truth of the simplicity of combat. Real combat is very simple, and creating too many techniques can just bring you further away from the truth. The classical man is just a bundle of routine ideas and tradition. When he acts, he is translating every living moment in terms of the old. So, what I get from that, a classical man is like a living book that's memorized. So, it's like, imagine this was not printed, but then one of his students, or a few of his students, remembered everything that he wrote down, or they were taught exactly just like this, but it was all in their mind. And they became the classical man. And then they ended up becoming like a source of hidden knowledge that can never be found in print format. I mean, this is classical because it's, he passed away over 40 years ago, but clearly there's a lot of wisdom contained in this book. And just imagine if this book did not exist, and then there were human beings that just memorized all this that they were taught from him because they refused to put it in print or say they didn't have the technology at the time. And then you got human beings that are walking sources of knowledge from an enlightened person like Bruce Lee. They may not be enlightened themselves, but they've become like a human their brain has become like a human computer in order to redistribute that wisdom that was shared to them from an enlightened being. So the classical man can be one of Bruce Lee's greatest disciples that has all his routines up here, his ideas, and his tradition. When he acts, he is translating every living moment in terms of the old. Yes, he's not engaged in the living moment. He's thinking about what Bruce told him, and he's bringing that wisdom from the past back to the present. So this person can be a valuable resource to learn from, because he becomes like a messenger from an enlightened being like Bruce Lee. That actual person may not be enlightened. He probably isn't, because he is not living in the moment. He's living in the past. But he has effectively sacrificed his own development in order to pretty much almost become a machine in order to help other people progress and grow. So it's like every business owner, every school owner, it's almost to their advantage and almost to their benefit to encourage people to become classical, because the classical people are the individuals that are going to spread the word of this business and this message in order to help this entrepreneur, this school owner grow. Essentially, the leader is creating followers, and the more followers that the leader has, the more successful the business, the more successful the school can be. And yeah, the classical man is a bundle of routine ideas and tradition. I mean, that's what we're used to learning in school, learning about other people's ideas and other people's ways. Few will break free in order to create their own way, in order to express their own way, and to lead their own group. And understand that Bruce's teachings were over 40 years ago when he passed away. So his teachings essentially have become old. And by me bringing this book to this present moment and reading this book right now, it doesn't mean that there's no value in it just because it's old. Like Lao Tzu's teachings from the Tao of Jeet, I think he passed away over 2,500 years ago. But bringing his past wisdom to this present moment can be very beneficial towards an individual's growth. Because that wisdom from the past can be timeless. That truth, that revelation that has been expressed in the past can be timeless. And because we live in a society that's declining, we are living in a society where people are becoming less intelligent, less spiritual, less peaceful, less humble, less loving. It's almost like it is necessary for us to pull the teachings back from the past to the present moment, because the teachings of the past held more truths than the teachings that are current. So when you think about the teachings of Buddha, of Jesus, of Bruce Lee, of Osho, of J. Krishnamurti, of Socrates, of Plato, of William Shakespeare, of Albert Einstein, when you think about all these people that have passed away, all this knowledge accumulated from the past, it's almost as if what happened in the past is even more beneficial, more advanced when it comes to spirituality than what we have presently. Now, science has been improving dramatically through time. Scientifically, right now, we are probably the most advanced that we've ever been. But spiritually, I feel that we are the most spiritually poor that we've ever been. So in order to gain insight and wisdom and to get closer to enlightenment, it's almost like we need to pull the teachings from the past to the present. And luckily, we do have technology where we're not reliant on human beings to memorize thousands of teachings, because we have books, we have computers, we have documents. There's no need for a human being to turn into a computer. But there's something of the past that can be beautiful. So I'm going to end it right there.